My order 3. I'm just waiting for it to go live on Instagram, and Instagram keeps changing the stream key for some reason. There's it. Alright. Hi guys. Claudia's sitting behind the camera singing, and I'm trying to focus. Sorry, let me just get my coffee. Hi, happy Saturday. This is an impromptu live. I wasn't necessarily planning on going on live on this until tomorrow. I can see you guys on Instagram. I can't really see anything. I can't see on YouTube and Facebook, so just let me know if you can hear me. Everything is good. I have one earring on. Wait, I just realized.
Damn, bro.
Look at us. Guys, if I can tell you that it's a nightmare to set up this stuff because this room is so tiny. So we should actually do a video and show you how this room ends up looking because we have to set up. And there's a reason I'm starting with that. So while I get my earring in my ear, let me start by saying the same things I always say. My name is Melinda. This is the first time you watch one of my lives. I do them. I'm going to start doing them, I think, a little bit more often. But I live in a noisy place. Upstairs at the moment, someone has got a bucket of water. I don't know why he washes with a bucket of water because there's 2 showers in the building. So you hear the water move around. They make noise as well. We can hear intimate acts. So I'm sorry if there's noise. You can literally hear everything. Okay, I see people say that they're good. I want to start off this live in an unconventional way because I got a DM this afternoon that didn't upset me. It just made me realize that a lot of the stuff that we talk about here, people's opinions when they respond to you or they send you messages is all based on their perception. And your perception is mainly made up of your experiences, what you think you know and what you think you don't know. And we've all heard people say to us, especially those of us who know what abuse and stuff look like, that there are 3 sides to a story, right? They say there's your version, there's the other person's version, and then there's the truth. To a degree, I believe that, but also truth can be verified through documentation and through evidence. Now I'm bringing that up first before I start talking about the Anele and AKA topic, because I find that a lot of people who are opinionated about the stuff that we talk about, myself, people who talk about gender-based violence, NGOs, they have a perception of what we talk about based on their personal experiences, and don't recognize that when you're able to comment or have an opinion on what it is we talk about in the ways that you do, a lot of the time it's coming from a position of privilege that you don't recognize. And the reason I say that is because when we talk about this stuff, if I could tell you that the only thing we get from talking about this is helping other people, we get nothing else from it. There is no universe where we're discussing abuse topics, teaching people these things, and we are becoming celebrities because of it. I speak to people over and over again who want to have a voice and all that, who say the same thing. There's this perception online that when we talk about celebrities and the things that are going on with them in their lives, the things that they choose to put out publicly, for some reason we're trying to get some version of clout from it, which is wild to me. Because if that was the case, I wouldn't be living in literally a dorm room. Half the people I know who's doing this are struggling just to support the people that they need to support going through these things. So let us first take a step back off that privilege. I would give anything, and I'm sure anyone who's following on here, who's watching this, who works in this space, would give anything to live a quiet life with their families, with a job that sustains them, and a life that sustains them, and not have to come to the public at all to talk about these topics. I'd be first in that line for that. But then I have to weigh these options. Firstly, like this afternoon I said, for myself personally, I've got nothing else to lose except to help the people that I can help. And the only way that I can do that is with the information and the education that I can give, right? So that comment was very personal to me because there's something that I had a conversation with Claudia about this afternoon that we need to put into perspective. I don't talk about for instance, the war in Israel for one reason and one reason only. My moral belief system says that if anybody, I don't care who they are, whether they are violent, whether they are abusive, whether they are criminal, a child, a woman, I don't care who they are. The second someone's life is at risk, I have some level of responsibility to get involved. And we don't always do it. That's just me. That's my personal conviction. I don't expect anybody to have that conviction. So when we're talking about men, women, and children, all of us deserve to be seen, to be loved, to be heard, and to be protected. But as soon as any one of those people's lives are at risk, I have a responsibility with the education that I have to do something about it. Right? I don't have the capacity to brandish a gun. I don't have law enforcement experience. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a doctor. But I am as educated as I possibly can be. So I'm giving what it is I can give. So if it comes to protecting people in different spheres of life, when it comes to danger and life, that's the first thing I'm going to choose. For me, someone's life trumps anything else. Whether it is protecting someone's mind, heart, spirit, if it comes to their life, I'm choosing that first. I'm going to categorically state that because the comment that I got this afternoon, I understand where it came from. But at the end of the day, what I'm going to be talking about goes far beyond AKA, Anele, her family, his family, and his daughter. It goes far beyond that because we already have daily instances where intimate partners are being killed every single day, and they do not have the luxury of their stories being told online. So we're going to use these stories as examples because it's the only examples that are getting leverage online. It's the only stories that is going to allow people who don't have access to the education to, it's only things that's going to bring it to their doorstep. If a woman gets a notification from IOL about Anele's story, the insights and the education on what was going on, and some of the stuff that those of us have been in situations like this can recognize, is going to teach that woman something she would otherwise not have access to. So I have to choose my battles here. We have to hold the tension between how harmful this knowing this stuff is and the way that we do it and the people we speak about versus the lives that can be saved in the process. So when I'm choosing here, I'm choosing the life that possibly could be saved, even at my own detriment, for real. I wish to God that wasn't the case, but even to my own detriment. And I'm sorry for getting so emotional about it, but that's just how it is. So let me just get into the topic. If you watched my stories this afternoon, you would have seen that I actually did a live a few weeks after AKA went and did an interview with Kile after Anele died. So let me give you context if you don't know the context of the story. It was 3 years ago. Anele was dating AKA, a famous rapper in South Africa, and we all woke up to the news that she fell from a 10-story building, the Pepper Club in Cape Town. It came to my attention because I had been just up the road a couple of days prior, or just a couple of days after, but also because there was a lot of things that were not clear about the events. So when this happened, a lot of things came out. There were videos that were released. Some of the videos I posted this afternoon, one of them, there was a door that I saw that was being kicked down, and then there was a video that stood out to me. I don't know how long before this was. She was on the roof at the Hilton in Durban, threatening to commit suicide. There was just a lot of things that was happening that was on video. Then Anele dies, and there are conflicting stories about exactly what happened on the night that she died. So me personally, I say nothing because I'm just watching the story play out like I do with everything, because observation is the most important thing. I watch the thing play out, and then eventually AKA decides to come to the media, and he sits with Tembikile and tells his version of events. So in the live that I did, that you will see, it was 3 years ago, I was speaking about my experience in media training and what it is AKA said. Now, I'm going to respectfully say, both of these people have passed on, right? Both of them under very suspicious circumstances. I'm not going to say I know what happened, because I don't. None of us do. We can speculate. That's all we can speculate about. There's a reason I'm going to talk about this tonight. And why I decided to just get it over and done with was because this is so much bigger than us. Like I said in the story this afternoon, this is so much bigger than us. This girl died and her life didn't seem to mean anything. Because when AKA passed on last year, all the things that happened after his death paled in comparison to this girl's life. And that is sad to me. I don't think accolades should determine how valued someone is after they pass on. And I don't think Anele got even the screen time she deserved. Because the truth of the matter is we never got to know her besides the violence that their relationship was about. So in my previous live, what I spoke about was him using the term in his interview of being passionate. And if you come from an abusive system, you are very aware that the word passion is a cover, right? We use that because we're trying to find ways to make what's happening in our relationships normal, when subconsciously we know that it's not okay. So one of the things that I think is very important to note is understanding how reactive abuse works. We don't talk enough about what happens in relationships where there are abusive things happening. Now, at the time that I did the first live, I was very, very vague because I was still currently doing the education on abuse at the time. I was still researching narcissism because I had just figured out what I was living through. And I didn't have enough insights or information to even give a real opinion on whether the relationship was abusive or not. And I'm not even going to necessarily label it that. What I did say in my previous live was that the abuse could have been from either side. But there are a few things that happened with Anele that still to this day are not clear to me. And I'm hoping, and the reason I'm talking about this is because if you haven't heard yet, there's a book coming out on this next week. And I'm praying that the book tells us more of Anele's story, right? Of what actually happened. We may not know everything, but I think it's worth telling her version of events. The reason I want to mention it I want to talk about it as reactive abuse is because we don't even know that this is happening to us when it's happening to us. We're just hysterical in the moment. So let me explain what reactive abuse is. It's when someone knows that they can manipulate you to the point of you either becoming violent or hysterical and then turning around on you and saying that you are the abusive person. 9 out of 10 times, the person who's doing the manipulation will record this happening. And the reason why they do that is because they need to find a way to protect themselves from looking like the abuser and victimizing themselves in the situation. So this essentially for them is a version of proof that you are the perpetrator in the situation. Now, in mainstream media and in courts, that is never brought up. Those videos are used as evidence for why the victim is labeled dangerous or the abuser, without any context to how abusers actually function and the reason why they feel this evidence is necessary. And because they keep getting away with it, they continue to do it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story that links up to why this is so dangerous. I said in one of my videos in the week, abusers are not they don't do this randomly. A lot of the things that they do, especially when it comes to reactive abuse, it's premeditated. They plan how they're going to walk in that door, how they're going to poke you, push you, prod you. And most of the time, and I've seen cases specifically where they walk in with a phone recording your reaction at their arrival. Because everything that they have on you, they will use against you. So when these videos surfaced, the first thing that went on in my mind at the time was, why are you recording something of this nature? Considering the fact that we already publicly knew that Anele was said to have mental health issues. You don't record someone with mental health issues in the middle of a breakdown and use it as evidence that they have a problem. You're just aggravating the situation. right? You're being an agitator. And generally, abusive people, they are antagonists. So an antagonist is someone who chooses to create an argument or fight so that they can get narcissistic supply from the people that they are harming. Because any attention to a narcissist and an abuser is good attention. So my first questions was, why are these videos, why do they even exist? At what point was it okay to take a video of someone who's clearly pretty hysterical and upset on the floor and then do a beautiful voiceover demonstrating that they did all these things and that you are innocent? What are you innocent of? Now, I can't say, like I said, I can't exactly say to you whether AKA was an abuser or not, or any of that stuff. He's not here. Neither of them are here to defend themselves, so I can't speak on anybody's behalf. But one of the things that is very interesting to me is that as humans, for some reason, we completely ignore the fact that critical thinking is necessary. There's a lot in abusive relationships that don't make sense. And the second it doesn't make sense, you need to be asking the right questions, not jumping to conclusions. We jump to conclusions because we have some sort of personal perception of the person or some personal bias. I don't care how famous or how well known someone is, I'm still going to ask the questions that are relevant for the current situation. You can have all the money in the world, it's not going to change the fact that my brain works and it functions correctly. And when people become really emotional about stuff like this, my question is, you're not asking the right question. Have you asked yourself, are you getting upset about certain issues in this topic or certain things that happen because you have a personal bias? You're refusing to answer or ask the right questions. Like in that interview with Tembekile, I said before, there was media training involved. There's no doubt in my mind. There really is no doubt in my mind. Because there were moments where the pressure was going up, his blood pressure was going up, and he found himself calming himself down. And that for me was one of the biggest things, because not long after this video, I watched someone do the same thing in a similar situation. And this person is known to be abusive and narcissistic, who antagonized their victim. The victim got hysterical and mid-antagonizing the victim. So I'm telling you, this man was screaming and saying, yeah, I'm going to get you. I'm coming for you. This is all the things that they say. And then mid-saying that, stood still, calmed down, turned around, looked at her and said, why are you acting crazy? You can't tell me you see those things and think that is normal. And think that is normal behavior. Who goes from completely chaotic to really still and calm in a matter of seconds? And in those videos, there's no way that he didn't react or scream or do something. There's no way. With the state of how those rooms looked, every one of those videos, with the state of how those rooms looked, for me, it's not rocket science to kind of figure out that something else is happening here. And those are the questions we were not asking, right? I know AKA's fans, the last time came for me, they probably going to come for me again because we need to respect him, whatever. My problem is you can be a fan, but you don't know the person. And the beautiful thing about narcissistic and abusive people, and I'm not necessarily calling him that, but I'm saying the beautiful thing about narcissistic and abusive people is, number one, they really know how to get people in their corner. There's actually a name for this. They call them flying monkeys. They know exactly how to convince people that they are the innocent person in the situation. They are very well versed at manipulating people into believing this. That's why when they do horrible things, it's difficult for people to believe it because they've never been privy to the reality behind closed doors. We need to stop being naive, y'all. We need to really stop being naive. And for the people who are saying to me, you need to keep quiet, why are you talking about this? I find it really strange that women will say to me, why am I talking about this? I need to consider the fact that AKA has a child, this is happening. And I'm like, number one, you're a woman. Number two, someone died. That like for me, that's the sign off. Someone died. He already decided to put this out in public. So me educating on what we need to look out for is harming the situation further. Please save me with that. Please. Because if If I had the opportunity to talk about the stuff prior to Anele dying, and it at least prevented anything further from happening to her, god damn, I would have still done it. I don't know how many Aneles are on this platform watching what I'm saying right now. And now I need to keep quiet because of your personal perception not saving that person's life. I digress. God damn, sorry. This makes me so upset because I'm just like, the level of audacity that we have in our privileged sort of corners to tell us what to and what not to do, and we watched this girl die and we all spoke about it and it was all online and then it disappeared. I am so glad that this book is coming out because I really feel like no one was going to care. I heard so many stories after that happened from people who were apparently close to the situation whenever in the circles that I was in that were never heard. Because a lot of the time, 99% of the time, or maybe I'm exaggerating, but like say 80% of the time, when something like this happens, the person with the money, who is generally the abusive person, gets to shut everything down. They get to silence all of the witnesses. They get to use their money to manipulate every system involved so that they come out as the victim in the situation and never get prosecuted. Never. So now I'm going to go back to these videos and what I should have said back then if I knew what I know now. Let me just have a sip of my coffee while they move furniture upstairs. What I should have said was that we needed to look for the signs. I cannot imagine what was going through that girl's mind. I cannot imagine. Imagine having to sit on the floor there, or when the friends were dragging her screaming, "You don't know what he's doing to me." For someone who's been there, and for other people who've been there, we know what we're feeling like in that moment. And we understand how easy it is for everybody now not to believe us because we are so upset. We are upset, we are hurt, and we are afraid because we don't know what is going on. We don't know why we are being gaslit. We don't know why we are being told we are crazy. We don't know why nobody believes us. I can't imagine what that girl had to suffer through before any of this, before her life got taken. And nobody is wanting to talk about that. Nobody is wanting to talk about, like I said in a couple of weeks ago, how many more of these girls are facing exactly the situation in almost every second to third household in our country. And yet, we are giving accolades and not asking questions. The longer we continue to do this, the worse the situation is going to get. Anele should not have died. Point blank period. Should not have died. One of the things that I mentioned in the last live that still to this day, and I'm hoping Melinda Ferguson's book answers this for me, is why when she threatened, according to him, why when she threatened to take her life, he left the room. I don't care who you are. If anybody, my friends know, Claudia gets upset with me when I have very dark thoughts because she's like, broski, I'm coming to you now. You said that to me. Like, I'm coming to your house now.
It's the word broski.
You use the word broski. Because you do not ever leave someone alone who is having thoughts of self-harm. It is the worst thing you can do. Now you're in a relationship with this person. Whether she's threatened it 5, 10, 20 times, you don't know when that day is that she might actually do it. So that for me is like a major question that I need answered. There's too many events that are not being answered. And the fact that there's so many people, this is just a big thing for me. There's so many people, post Anele's death, post AKA's death, that seem to be riding the wave of fame that was given to them based on these people's demise. And yet, those of us who are trying to teach people how to recognize abuse are being called out for looking for fame. And then someone dies and you're riding the wave. But we're not asking what happened. Why did Anele have to become so hysterical and then end up dead? What happened between the doors that were being kicked down and her being found naked? That's a different question altogether. Her being found naked on the floor in the middle of Cape Town. Was there anyone filling in the gaps between those events? Asking the right questions. One of the things that I mentioned quite a few times then was there needed to be a separation between the two of them so that both of them individually were trying to figure out what was going on. But from now when I'm looking at it, that wasn't going to happen, because if AKA was actually in fact an abuser, she was not going to be able to get away from him, whether she wanted to or not. And based on her mental health history, it's so easy when someone has mental health challenges or even depression to use that against them, to manipulate them into staying with you. I could come up with an entire scenario of what happened if I wanted to, based on my education. And the scenario would then make full sense. But I still don't get how, till this very moment in time, Anele's story hasn't gotten the traction that it was meant to get. We need to stop getting in our own way and defending people who clearly have questionable character. You can tell me about drugs all you like, but I know people who've been in relationships who are both drug abusers and neither of them were abusing one another. The substance is not the issue. It's the people involved. I just want to read some comments. Just if you have any questions, you can ask. She might have been rich, but was she a public figure? Was she rich? Or her parents? Her parents were wealthy, as far as her dad is pretty wealthy, as far as I know. She just happened to be with a very famous person. And I think fame to a degree protects people who do this kind of thing. Not to a degree, actually. Fame protects them pretty heavily, because fame can actually help you play this victim narrative really well. If I can give you a handful of people right now that I know for a fact who are narcissistic people whose fame have protected them from the people they've abused. I'm not going to mention them here, but I can tell you 100% for a fact that I know 5 people who, and people who will shock you, but because they are famous and well known, and they are fairly nice to the people they know, we will never know what happens behind closed doors. Because the truth of the matter is their money protects them and makes sure that the truth never gets told. To be rich and know many people is a huge difference. Yeah. I just go from the top. Before you get started, I just want to thank you. You've been carrying and guiding me ever since I started following you. I appreciate it. I get a lot of these messages every day. I'm literally just teaching what I know and what I study myself. And I only know all of this stuff because, I mean, personal experience kind of boosts you into, kind of catapults you into this. In a country like South Africa, you get away with anything if you have fame, power, and money. Y'all, you know, I'm saying that statement so nonchalant, but y'all don't understand the reality of how bad this actually is. You do not understand even the fathomable reality of how bad this is. And how people like me, literally when we're doing stuff like this, we put a target on our backs because those people who have money can do anything to you. I said this afternoon in my video, I have nothing to lose. So the only thing I have left to lose is my life. If I need to teach people this stuff and someone comes for me, then so be it. Because those people have the power to shift and change anything they want. I've spoken to so many people in the last 3 months alone who cannot get their stories heard, who cannot get their cases moved forward, whose dockets are disappearing, who are being framed for things from fraud to murder by their abusers. It's wild to me that we still live in the most naive society on the planet where we believe that these things are not actually happening to innocent people who just fell in love with someone. You just chose to love someone without realizing how damaged that person was, and that they were going to pin their crimes on you simply because they had the money, the fame, and the power to protect themselves. One thing I didn't understand about why AKA's fans were coming for me is, between him and her life, whose was more important? Was his more important because he had money? Was his more important because he won awards and made music? Why was his life more important than hers? Because intrinsically, that is what you're saying. You're saying we shouldn't have an opinion or thoughts or even an educated idea of what was happening to her based on the fact that her family might have been famous, but she was, or not famous, wealthy, but because she wasn't famous and have the accolades that he did, her life meant less than his? That doesn't work in a normal moral society. And every day when we're having these conversations, the question comes to me at all times is, what is our moral standing when it comes to people's lives and abuse? It seems like morality goes out of the window when we have personal biases and opinions based on someone's fame. This is why our social media looks the way that it does. Specifically South African social media. We've been talking for the last week, I think it's Claudia, about the comedy, or the last couple of weeks since we did the interview with Robbie Collins. One of the interesting things to me is South Africans use TikTok as a place to tell jokes and comedy and to comment on people's posts. Because we find comedy as an outlet to trauma, as opposed to dealing with the issues that result in trauma. Avoidance has been our best tactic, and look what it's costing us. It's been 3 years since this girl died, and none of us, I'm hoping Melinda does, but none of us are any closer to answers on what happened that night. So when AKA passes away, it turns into this big thing all over the world. He wasn't Nelson Mandela, y'all. I'm going to say the same thing about him that I said I think it was a couple of years ago about it was about Jacob Zuma and the whole protest that happened in Durban. If that man turned around for 5 minutes and supported you anywhere that you needed and practically saved your life, then you can go tway all you like. But as long as he didn't, you need to still ask the right questions. What happened to her? He's not here now anymore, so we can't ask him. But what happened to her? Why was she screaming in a video that you took? Why were you taking the video? What is the truth? There's so many people I can guarantee that know the truth that are too afraid to say anything or want to stand by their friend, because as far as they are concerned, this couldn't have been abusive because they do not have the education. Reactive abuse works so well because it makes victims look like crazy people all the time. That's why women lose their children. That's why women who have been physically abused, sexually abused, all of those things are labeled as problem children, because their abusers know how to manipulate the system in this way, know how to make them look crazy and record them. Common sense needs to prevail at some point, and I'm learning. Common sense is pretty expensive. 1 plus 1 doesn't make 2 here. Yo, I've got a lot to say on this. I'm trying to stay calm, because in reality, today's DM actually pissed the hell out of me, because I was just like, I wish there was a way that I could make people see that if we don't, especially those of us who know and who are learning, open our damn mouths, we are basically sending all of these girls to the slaughter without them knowing any better. Where they're being taken advantage of by these abusive men, and we are shrugging our shoulders and saying, well, you know, it's not my problem. I was saying to Claudia this afternoon, those of us who speak about this also, it doesn't necessarily make us innocent. I can account for numerous times where I wished I had stepped into someone else's life when that was happening to them. Because I didn't know any better, I made it not my problem. But when someone who is this well known gets away with shit like this, we are essentially saying to every young boy that it's okay to do that. And that he can get away with it. And we're going to shrug our shoulders and say it's not our problem. So those of us who have a voice, who choose to talk about this stuff, need to do it. We need to stop saying, oh, we don't really know the full story, so we might not say anything about it. What you do know is things you need to be asking questions about. If it looks weird, it usually is. Something usually is wrong. But we're too afraid to do stuff like that. I'm going to ask those questions, and I'll ask those questions until they get answers. And I keep bringing Melinda Ferguson's book up because it's coming out next week. I'm going to try by my utmost best to get a copy because I feel like it's going to give us answers to questions we weren't even asking at the time. The people who didn't end up giving their version of what they saw was going on. There are people who spoke up. I don't know if you saw in the Women for Change's stories that there were women who spoke up, people who spoke up prior to her falling off of the building about some things that they had seen, of him smacking her in public. This is not rocket science, people, but we have to stop choosing our biases over the truth. Okay. What is this? What do you think happened? What I think happened? Please don't quote me. Honestly, from what I'm gathering, that the whole time he was using her mental health up against her, that he was using it to trigger her repeatedly, and when he reactively abuse her. So he poke her, she get really upset and hysterical, and then they get into an altercation. By the time the room is now trashed and she's gone completely crazy because she doesn't understand why he's treating her the way, or why he's doing what he's doing, or using her vulnerabilities against her, which is highly likely. He then pulls out the camera and says, can you see how crazy she's acting? This obviously now we've seen this happen 3-4 times. If you do this repeatedly to a victim of abuse, what you're actually doing is completely isolating them, because now they're too embarrassed to come outside in public because you're telling them, can you see how crazy you're acting? Abusers do that. Can you see how crazy you're acting? Now nobody's going to want to be around you. No, I think just don't speak to those people because you're going to embarrass yourself, you're going to humiliate yourself. All of this is tactical. On the evening of the event, as far as I can tell, there was obviously some sort of altercation or argument that happened. She probably did threaten to jump to try and get his attention, to make him realize that what he was doing is actually serious, because she didn't even know what he was doing to her. And what I do think is that he could have pushed her. That's just my opinion. Don't quote me, because I could be very wrong. But there's just too many suspicious things happening. That happened. But like I said, they are both passed on. I have to be respectful about the fact that they are both not here. But even at the time, that is what I thought happened. Because his version of events chronologically didn't make sense. The book will come out at the end of April. Okay, thank you. And should be available in all bookstores. Guys, go get the book. I want to get it just so that I'll probably do a review if I can get it on time. It's written by Melinda Ferguson, who is a famous South African author and journalist. Let me tell you, the funniest part about this is, in the same year, maybe 3 or 4 months later, I actually did an online course with Melinda for writing a book. So when I found out this morning that it was her who wrote the book, I was like, oh, small world. Cape Town is a very small place, but okay, that's a sideline. We were told that we are losing the plot because we posted a memorial post on the day she died. It's wild. Abusers and murderers have shows on TV and we don't mind as a nation. Let me say something that I think will shock a lot of people watching this. At least 7 out of 10 of the people that you see on TV every day are abusers. You can try to figure out on your own who those people are. What is it? Do you think the author consulted his family and connected? I can't speculate. I hope Melinda was able to. Because at the time I also said one of the things that concerned me was the fact that she had mental health issues, and I don't feel like everybody in the situation was as educated as they should have been. That's still for speculation because I don't really know much about her family other than what I saw the day of the funeral. So I guess we'll find out. We don't think we know. Both families had their chances to give all their input to this book. Okay, thank you for that, because I didn't know. I'm still finding out as we go along. The investigation inquest will be in court at the end of the month. Truth will come out on the day. So the plot thickens. This is not going to end anytime soon. I just hope that when more information comes out, I will probably give a review of what was said, because I have a feeling that some of the things that I'm thinking are probably going to be confirmed. And then I guess we'll take it from there. So that is my thoughts on that. I'll save this live. Please, AKA's fans, don't come for my throat. Guys, like I told you in the last live, I was never a fan, and it has nothing to do with him or his music or whatever. But when I see a red blanket, I'm gonna call it out. It had nothing to do with anything personal. I'm just like, your girlfriend dies after videos come out and then you do a media trained interview. It's giving, what is your word, Gloria? It's giving sus. Okay, so yeah, that's me on that. Love you guys. I won't do a live tomorrow based on this one. And we chat later.